Joyce and John Sheridan were a prominent couple, pillars of their wealthy New Jersey community. He was a former transportation commissioner and a powerful healthcare executive. She was a beloved former schoolteacher. But on September the 28th, 2014, their bodies were found stabbed to death in a brutal murder scene in their own bedroom. Were these slayings a twisted act of murder-suicide as authorities initially suspected, or was this a cold-blooded double homicide, the victims of a mysterious intruder hell-bent on destruction? Before we begin, we would like to send our sincere condolences to the loved ones of Joyce and John Sheridan, who fell victim to the abominable acts described in this case. In the early morning hours of September the 28th, 2014, the tight-knit community of Skillman, New Jersey, was shaken by the sound of sirens. Police and firefighters raced to the upscale home of John and Joyce Sheridan after a report of smoke and flames. As first responders arrived at the sprawling residence around 6:20 a.m., they were met with a scene of horror. Thick, black smoke billowed from the second-floor master bedroom where the Sheridans slept. After forcing entry through the unlocked front door, firefighters scrambled upstairs to extinguish the blaze. There they made a gruesome discovery: the bodies of the elderly couple lying face up amidst the charred remains. Both had been savagely stabbed, and an accelerant, later determined to be gasoline, was poured throughout the room in an apparent attempt to destroy evidence. 73-year-old Joyce's body was badly burned and mutilated, with 12 grisly stab wounds covering her head, hands, and the area that pierced her aorta, which turned out to be the fatal blow. Her 72-year-old husband and former state transportation commissioner John suffered 5 stab wounds to his neck and torso, one slicing through his jugular vein. A heavy wooden armoire had fallen across John's body, breaking his ribs. The fire was smoldering when authorities arrived, filling John's lungs with soot and carbon monoxide. Next to the bodies, police found an empty gasoline can, matches, and a set of knives believed to be the murder weapons. But as they began processing the nightmare, the investigators were startled to find nearly $1,000 in cash left untouched on a nightstand, along with valuable jewelry, electronics, and other possessions. If this was a robbery gone wrong, the perpetrators missed obvious valuables in plain sight. Over the next several days, the quiet town was shaken by the murders. Everyone was talking about why someone would hurt such nice people. John was a pillar of the local Republican political establishment, boasting close ties to multiple governors over his storied career in public service. After retiring from government, he became a powerful hospital executive, helping oversee a lucrative development project near Camden. Joyce was an adored former schoolteacher known for her kindness and infectious spirit in the community. Together, they raised 4 sons, including twins Mark and Matthew. By all accounts, the Sheridans seemed to have it all. A storybook life built on success, status, and family devotion. Friends and relatives were at a complete loss over who could want to extinguish such a legendary couple in cold blood. As the shocking case began gaining national media attention, authorities provided few details, fueling rampant rumors and speculation. Then, just a week after the murders, Somerset County Prosecutor Geoffrey Soriano held a press conference to announce his office's jaw-dropping findings. He said this was a sordid case of murder-suicide carried out by John himself. Soriano asserted evidence revealed the deadly struggle was contained entirely in the upstairs bedroom, and there were no signs of forced entry or a home invasion. He claimed hesitation wounds found on John's body were a hallmark of self-inflicted injuries, often seen in suicides by slashing. Although the motive remained unclear, Soriano maintained John took his own life after killing Joyce and attempting to cover his tracks by setting the fire. This outrageous official conclusion sent shockwaves through the grieving Sheridan family. The sons were beside themselves with anger and disbelief that investigators could pin such a heinous act of violence on their beloved father with such little substantive evidence. Mark immediately began poking holes in the prosecution's theory and what he saw as a deeply flawed investigation rife with contradictions. To be clear, we do not have answers to what happened to our parents, Mark stated defiantly. Based on the evidence, neither do the investigators. From day one, the brothers were met with resistance while grappling for the truth about their parents' death. Matt Sheridan faced harassment when police inexplicably asked to search his vehicle parked at the crime scene, only to find a small amount of cocaine, along with a digital scale and baggies dusted with white residue. Rather than answers, they were met with intimidation tactics and roadblocks to the evidence. Red flags immediately emerged over the handling of the investigation that fueled the family's skepticism. Key witnesses were never interviewed. including those who saw John mere hours before his death. A potential eyewitness claims they saw a strange vehicle speedily leaving the cul-de-sac around the time of the murders. The home itself was barely processed for fingerprints, bloodstains, and other crucial evidence that could conclusively prove whether an intruder was present. Soriano's team worked backward from their original murder-suicide theory, selectively parsing evidence to fit that conclusion rather than exploring all possibilities objectively. The family felt the probe into the complex lives of Joyce and John lacked thoroughness and reeked of tunnel vision, cutting corners and making assumptions to provide the easiest answers. Most troubling was the presence of an unusual melted object found at the scene, composed primarily of zinc and other metals. While prosecutors dismissed it as irrelevant debris, the Sheridan sons believed it could be a crucial piece of the murder weapon, a third knife used in the slayings that were not recovered from the scene. If somebody's going to hit him with a fireplace poker, they're going to finish the job, argued Barry Jansen, the crime scene photographer present that morning. Clearly, he didn't find the heavy poker that left John's ribs shattered. More strange anomalies emerged that cast doubt on the official story. Outside the bedroom, blood-spattered patterns were clearly indicative of a physical struggle rather than self-inflicted wounds, and a bent fireplace poker located elsewhere raised further questions about whether an intruder grabbed it as a makeshift weapon from downstairs before committing the slayings. Moreover, why were 3 separate knives needed to kill Joyce and John, including one serrated bread knife that seemed ill-suited for a stabbing attack? And how could Joyce, standing just over 5 feet tall and severely arthritic from chronic pain, physically overpower and inflict wounds on her much larger husband? The questions mounted endlessly for the grieving sons desperate for truthful answers. The Sheridans were not convinced from the beginning. They knew their parents to be a happy couple without any marital woes, financial troubles, or mental health crises that could explain such a brutal murder-suicide. As more discrepancies around the crime scene evidence and investigative process emerged, they became further outraged at the conclusions being drawn about their parents' demise. In the aftermath, the family hired renowned forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Baden to review the case and evidence. Baden found numerous issues with the prosecution's murder-suicide theory after examining the evidence. He noted the lack of John's DNA blood evidence on Joyce despite her extensive defensive wounds. The angles and depths of John's neck wounds appeared more consistent with an assault rather than self-inflicted hesitation cuts. And if John had killed Joyce first, why was there no transfer of her blood onto his body from the brutal attack? Most perplexing to Baden was the complete absence of any note, text message, email, or other communication indicating John was psychologically troubled enough to orchestrate such a disturbing dual murder plot against his wife before killing himself. All evidence pointed to Joyce and John having normal interactions with family and colleagues in the days and hours leading up to their deaths. In Baden's expert opinion, the physical evidence couldn't conclusively prove murder-suicide despite the prosecutor's insistence. At best, he felt the killing should be classified as undetermined rather than outright blaming John with such little concrete proof of motive or method. For the Sheridan sons, having an ally like Baden validate their doubts provided some solace in an otherwise maddening situation. But the New Jersey medical examiner system itself was part of the problem, hopelessly compromised under the authority of law enforcement rather than an independent oversight body. In this case, the autopsy was conducted by an uncertified examiner previously fired for failing to disclose changed findings to police in another case. He also met privately with prosecutors multiple times before issuing the Sheridan's reports, a blatant violation of independent analysis. New Jersey's medical examiner's office had gone 6 years without an appointed overseer due to repeated resignations in protest over the lack of autonomy and resources. Mark Sheridan recognized these endemic flaws played a role in his parents' case, which was grossly mishandled. He began publicly rallying against the system and vowed to leverage his political connections to block the reappointment of prosecutor Geoffrey Soriano, who he felt botched and prematurely judged the high-profile murders from the beginning. As the case grew colder, the Sheridan family hired independent experts to re-examine the evidence. Their findings contradicted the original autopsy results and cast significant doubt on the murder-suicide theory. One expert noted that the nature of Joyce's stab wounds indicated a frenzied attack, more typical of a crime of passion or rage by a third party, rather than a calculated act by her husband. Further complicating the case was John Sheridan's professional background. At the time of his death, John was embroiled in several high-stakes projects and negotiations at Copper Health System. Some speculated that his work may have made him enemies who sought retribution. However, no solid leads emerged from this angle, leaving the true motive for the crime obscured. Later, the Sheridan family filed a lawsuit against the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office, demanding a reclassification of the case from murder-suicide to undetermined, arguing that the evidence did not conclusively support the original ruling. Their persistence paid off in 2017 when a state medical examiner agreed to change the manner of death for John Sheridan to undetermined, acknowledging the unresolved questions surrounding that case. The reclassification breathed new life into the investigation, but it also underscored the lack of clear answers. Despite the changed ruling, no new suspects were identified and no arrests were made. The case remains open, with the Sheridan family continuing to seek justice and closure for their parents. If anyone has any information on the suspicious death of Joyce and John Sheridan, please contact your nearest police department. Your help could be crucial in bringing justice to this case. The tragic and mysterious deaths of Joyce and John Sheridan continue to haunt their loved ones and the community that admired them. What do you think really happened on that fateful September morning? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments section below. Before you leave, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We'll see you in the next video.